Welcome to Construction Genius. Think about what your legacy is going to be as a construction company owner. I'd like to say that the quality of the relationships that you build with people over the years will have a direct impact on what that legacy will be. My guest today is Bill Schultz, back on the show. Check out episode 92 for our first discussion. And he is the CEO of Schultz Heavy Construction. And we talk about how he grew as a construction leader, working with his dad in his business, and the crisis that that business went through, how that had a profound impact upon Bill and his father, and how that led Bill to start his own company. We talk about the leadership lessons that he learned while working for his father, touching on the leadership lessons that he's brought forward into his current business. And as you listen carefully, you're going to get many takeaways to help you in your leadership in terms of your communication, in terms of how you deal with conflict. And he shares an insight that I've never really heard before, specifically into how to manage your emotions when you're in the midst of a crisis. Enjoy my interview here today with Bill, and feel free to share this with other people. Thank you for listening to Construction Genius. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Bill, welcome back to Construction Genius.
Thank you for the invitation back, Eric. I'm looking forward to this.
Take us back to the year 2000 when you started your construction company. How did that all come about?
I had worked for my father in his construction business for quite a few years and worked my way up to vice president of construction in my later 30s. And he decided to close his business in 1999. And he came to me and he said he had made that decision and he wanted to know what I wanted to do. And I said right away, instinctively, I want to start my own business. And it was that quick that I made that decision and in response to his question of what I want to do.
So at that point, I'm really interested because your father, you'd been working with your father for how long?
For about 20 years.
So why did you choose construction as a career?
It started when I was a very young kid. I was always organizing things and taking things apart and building things. And when I was 14 or 15 years old, became very interested in farming on a 3-acre parcel of property behind my father's house. And I grew vegetables and I wanted to sell the vegetables. I just wanted to work in the dirt. I wanted to grow things. I wanted to create something and I wanted to go sell it. And I at that time in my life, all I wanted to do is get a pickup truck and a tractor and grow vegetables and sell them. I was happy farming. And then I finished up through high school and my pathway took me to community college. My parents wanted me to go to community college for construction technology or civil technology. It was a 2-year degree in that. And I didn't even want to go to school. It was a local school and I would not go to school some days. I would go to work. I would just show up on one of my father's jobs and go to work. And
you were skipping class to go to the job site?
Yeah. I would just show up at work because I was frustrated going to school. I didn't want to go to school. And it took me, I attended a 2-year community college over a 3-year period.
You're right.
I wasn't very successful at it.
I know how you feel.
Yeah.
It's interesting though. You said you want to, that really struck me. You want to create something and then go sell it. That's a very interesting way of putting it.
Yeah.
And you wanted to be in the dirt. So I guess if you're looking to get into construction, at least if you're going to be in the field, you got to be comfortable in the dirt, and then you get to create something and sell it to the client. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. I
So it's
agree.
interesting. Did you immediately come into your dad's business, or how did that all happen?
Immediately, I came into his business immediately.
Yeah.
It was a natural thing for me. I, I just slipped right into it.
What was that like when you the first day? When you I mean, I'm sure you were hanging around like you were saying a little bit, but when you became a formal employee, what was it like to be, the owner's son working in the business?
Well, at first it was a lot of fun, and then over the years, when I began to work with other people in an organized way, organized meaning I wasn't just doing yard work or being a mechanic's helper. I became a person on a crew, a worker on a crew. And at times I was, a little bit later in my career, I was a takeoff person, making phone calls to vendors in an office environment. So it became not so much fun when I began to work with other people because I had an independent streak in me, and I moved forward based upon what I wanted to do, working in my little kingdom in my mind, and I wasn't asking my father what I should do. And I wasn't asking the other people that I was working with that were my leaders. I wasn't asking them what I should do. They would tell me what to do at times, but then there was other times when I would just forge ahead and go do my thing off to the side without following the team going forward because I had ideas that I had a better idea than other people. And I
So how
caused,
often were you right that you had a better idea?
um, I don't remember anything technically about whether I was right or not. I was probably not right. It probably was meaningless on whether I was right or wrong. What I do remember is that many times I was right on something to do with people issues related to respect. I remember times when people would gossip or talk about somebody, and I would stand up for that person, and I would tell people that that's wrong, that you're talking about that person when they're not here to defend themselves.
How old were you when you were doing this?
I was probably 22 or 23 years old,
And the
and
people you were, talking to, or what kind of age were they?
30s and 40s.
How do they receive that when you began to talk like that?
I remember one time I was on a New York State Department of Transportation project, and there was, in those days, used to be after work beer drinking.
Yep.
And in one of those forums, one of the foremen that I had worked with and for on that job wasn't there, and people were making fun of him. And I don't remember what they're making fun of him about, but it was very inappropriate because it was in front of employees of my father's company and employees of New York State. And I said that in the meeting or in that beer party that it wasn't right to talk about him when he wasn't here in front of all these other people that were his coworkers.
Right.
And shortly thereafter, I was excused from the job. They didn't want me around the
That's
job.
interesting. So did
Yeah.
they did they go to your dad and say that we don't want Bill on the job?
I don't remember that. I don't think they did. I think that they went to the project superintendent or maybe the project manager and said that. And I was internally in the business, I was reassigned to another job.
And so your dad didn't intervene. Did he have any knowledge about that?
No, I don't think he did. I don't think that he knew that went on.
Did you bring it up to him at all?
No, I never did.
Did you know that it was because of what you had, the defending of that other guy, that's why you got moved off, or was it something else? How was it presented to you?
I don't remember. I just remember that it was related to that because sometimes when I would say things, I had an edge about me.
Yeah.
And I was probably accusatory when I was making my statement,
Uh-huh.
and I was being defensive of what I thought was bad behavior and defending the person that I work for.
It's interesting because, I'm hearing a few things here about how the substance of what you were saying was correct, but the style or the delivery of it rubbed people the wrong way.
Yep, that was me.
But it's interesting. You didn't go and talk to your dad about it, and that people in the company, it seems like, were comfortable reassigning you because of a lack of a fit there, without having to refer to your dad, who was the owner of the business.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think that's what happened. And no, I didn't go to my dad about it.
How would you characterize your relationships with people that you worked with in the early days of your career as you were building your experience?
I would say that I was very friendly with my coworkers, the workers, the tradespeople that I was working with when I was a tradesperson. And then when I became a foreman on a crew, I remember some people didn't respect me. I felt that they didn't respect me. They may have respected me, but I had a low level of self-confidence, and I thought that they didn't respect me, and that what I felt may have amplified something that really wasn't there.
So when you became a foreman, were there particular areas where you were more confident in than others?
I was very competent technically.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't very competent communicating with people. I wasn't very competent communicating directions to people. I was timid. I was unsure of myself with interacting with people.
Based on what you had said about, not talking behind someone's back, you had some insights on how you should be showing up as a person, but then you had some struggles in terms of communicating those things.
Yes, it's true. I'm thinking right now about how I told you I wanted to be a farmer. I wanted to be in the dirt. And when I became a foreman, I became somebody that was having fun when we were playing in the dirt. Yet when I had to interact with people and lead people and direct people and manage people, I wasn't having fun. I wasn't good at it. I didn't have any training in it. I didn't know what to do.
So how did you get better?
Well, I just kept doing it, and I wanted to be successful in construction. And then later on, when I got married to my wife, I felt like I had to succeed even more for her, and then for her and our family that we grew with our two daughters.
What do you think the most important quality of a good leader is?
The best qualities that I've recognized in myself is the ability to step out of a situation emotionally and to provide guidance to others that are in the situation.
So many of us struggle with responding emotionally and inappropriately in a pressure situation. How is it that you get to that point where you're not allowing your emotions to drive you and you're able to make that positive contribution in the pressure situation?
I think of a specific individual that I had my most serious flare-up with and my most unproductive day in my business life, career. And I think about that, and it's like my deep breath. I think about that situation, how unproductive it was, and it puts me in a better frame of mind.
Okay.
I don't want to do it again.
Okay, very good. That's very interesting. So do you mind sharing a little bit about what that was all about, just so we can get some context there?
It was somebody that would continually be disrespectful to me.
Interesting.
And they would do it in front of a group. And I believe it's tied into my DNA of my character, because those are the kind of behaviors that in my early 20s I would react to.
Right.
And so I would defend people, and then when it would come at me, I would defend myself.
Right.
When somebody's being disrespectful, and it's 100% of the time. Whenever I get agitated, it's 100% of the time it is somebody being disrespectful to me or to somebody else.
So you would remember that one incident that kind of brings you back into the, if I respond emotionally, this is what's going to happen. And then from there, you can pivot into responding less emotionally.
Yes, yes.
I'm glad that we got to that, because different people do different things in order to manage their emotions. And I think it's interesting to think about how patient we have to be with ourselves in a certain way, because it takes a long time to learn these lessons of leadership. It just doesn't happen overnight. What I like about what you just shared, it can be a very simple shortcut for someone to, when they get into that situation, to think of a very negative situation similar to it, and to allow that negative experience to propel them into being more positive in the way they're conducting themselves. How was your relationship with your father as you were going in the business? Did he ever have discussions with you later on where he was saying, you know, Bill, I'd like you to take the business over from me? Was that the expectation?
There was discussions about succession with the family. And I had a brother, Dan, my sister, Terry, that also worked at the business with me, for my dad. And we would have family meetings with outside third parties that would come in to the office and coach my father and coach us as a family. So it was a family plan. It wasn't a plan just for me.
Okay. So then you're developing your careers in construction. By the time we get to the late 90s, you've been in it for 20 years?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. What happened? Why did your father decide to shut his business down?
Around 1997, it began with a string of low bids on public work that was surety bonded. And it all happened at once, and it was all severe. And on three major projects, and he was unable to recover from that financially on those three jobs. So he decided that, well, he didn't decide, the surety decided that they weren't going to support his business, which was called Schultz Construction, anymore. They weren't going to support it with surety bonds anymore. They supported it for a little while at a low level, but then it just stopped. So then he started another construction company with their support, with the surety bond support, because they wanted him to continue in business so that he could be there to finish up the old Schultz Construction jobs. So he stayed. He was going to continue to stay in business, and that was around 1999 when he started that other business. And by that time, it was only me left in the family business. My brother he left, and he took another job somewhere else, and my sister Terry left. They both moved out of the state and took other jobs. So it was me and my father and other people that stayed with my father.
And why did you decide to stick around?
I wanted to be there to help my father.
Okay.
I had been promoted to the vice president of construction in 1998, and that's when all these problems began. And I wanted to stay there to help him do the best that I could do to work through those problems.
What are some of the key learning lessons that you gleaned during your father's struggles that you've taken with you in your own business that have helped you?
I saw what happened in the estimating part of the business, in his business. It worked well when it worked well, but when it didn't work well, oh, so bad it was.
Yeah.
And so when I set up my business, I had a very consistent focus on estimating all the time. And I did that to the extent that in the first few years of my business, I didn't go out to the jobs much because I was always bidding. I was interacting with people, and I would go out to the jobs, but not every day. I might go out to the jobs once a week. even in the early years, because I had to make sure that I was training people that I was working with to produce accurate takeoffs, you get accurate quotes and scopes from subcontractors, and make sure that the bid we put together was as close as we could get it to the actual cost that we were going to experience when we built it.
What was the impact on your family as your father's business struggled?
On my family, with my wife and my two daughters?
No, just the whole Schultz family, you know, the siblings, your father, all that kind of, that dynamic. What was that dynamic like at the time?
We didn't talk about it a lot, but I can look back on it with a perspective, my own perspective right now, without talking to them about it. But I do think that it was very disruptive for my sister Terry and her husband Tim. Tim also worked for my father, and Tim was the equipment manager, and Terry was in admin. And as the business wound down, there wasn't a job for them. The business was shrinking; it was in free fall, and their family was disrupted, and they moved out of state. My brother-in-law got a job on the Big Dig in Boston, so he moved over. They moved over there. They were uprooted from where they grew up. And my brother Dan, he left, and I think he ended up in California. He's in California now, and he was working for some developers, and then he spent quite a few years working for Tykert.
Tykert?
Yeah.
Nice. It's one of my clients. I love Tykert. Your dad comes to you and he's shutting the business down, but what did your dad do at that point to help you in the setting up of your business?
He told me that when he was going to shut his business down, that he was going to protect my reputation in the industry through ensuring that all suppliers and all vendors were paid, and that he would walk out of this on the other end of all this bad stuff with his head held high and protecting me and my reputation, so that when I started my business, that I would be able to hold my head high in the industry.
So did he do that knowing that you wanted to start your own business?
Yes, he did.
Do you think he would have done it differently if you had said, I'm out?
No, I don't. He's a very honorable man, and I think that he would have done it the same way. Because I was there, he told me that he was doing that for me. And it was possibly something that made him feel very good to be able to give something like that to me, instead of just experiencing it for himself.
As you look back on your father's legacies, what are some of the key takeaways from that you want to pass on to the next generation of construction professionals?
Something that's very important to me is that my father attended school through the 8th grade only.
Yeah.
And when he was 17 years old, he joined the Navy. And in the Navy, they gave him a test and an IQ test. And he told me that he graded very high on the IQ test. And while he was in the Navy, he was able to go up to the level of E5, enlisted man. And he said that was a very high level, and he was very happy with that. And he was very happy with his achievement. And during that 4 years he was in the service, he learned what I didn't learn. He learned to have clear communication from the people that he was working with. And then he learned how important it was to follow through on that. And I look at that, and I look at my early part of my life, and I didn't have that. And I think it's important. And when he got out of the Navy, he married my mother, and he said that the Navy had changed him in a positive way, and she also changed him in a positive way.
Uh-huh.
And he then went on to work for a construction company in the Albany, New York area, and then applied for a manager's position when he was very young. I would say he was probably still 23, 24 years old. And it was for a builder developer. It was a company located in Albany, New York. And he told me recently that on the employment application, they asked for his education, and he just wrote down the words high school.
Right.
And he was never asked to drill into that. And he got the job, and he went on and he used that as the launch. He worked for them for maybe 8 years into the late 60s, and a recession hit the housing market in the late 60s. And that builder developer only wanted to build, they didn't want to develop, so they sold their heavy equipment that my dad used to manage. And he used that as a launch for his own business in 1969 or 1970.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's a really good career path that he took.
So what did he do after he sold the construction company? Or actually, after he shut down his construction company, what did he do?
He and my mother moved to Raleigh, North Carolina, and my dad opened up a sidewalk ministry, and he would work on behalf of the unborn.
Huh.
He would spend a lot of time on the sidewalks, helping people. He and my mom would bring people into their homes, people that were struggling, that had little children or were going to have a child, and they would literally bring them into their own home and give them shelter and food and spiritual guidance.
Did that surprise you that he went into that?
Yeah, it was something that he wasn't into when we were growing up. And he told me at one time that after he went through all those difficult times in his business and shutting his business down, that some people in a crisis turn to drugs or alcohol. And he said, I turned to Jesus Christ.
Interesting.
And so he's been on a very strong pathway working with Jesus Christ for many years.
So that reminds me of the passage in Romans 8 that says all things are working together for good.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's really a question in our lives of how we define that good.
Yes.
So if we have the good being, accumulating riches and having success and reputation, your father, he didn't have, perhaps he didn't accumulate all the riches he could because his business failed, and maybe his reputation in a certain way. Oh, look at him, he didn't, something went wrong there, but he didn't allow that to keep him from the greater good, so to speak.
That's very true.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, I spoke to both my parents within the last 2 weeks, and they told me that they are so happy that life turned out the way that it did for them, and that they said that they are millionaires and they don't have any money. They're millionaires in life, is what they told me.
And that's all about the impact that they've had on other people's lives.
It's true.
What were some of the early challenges that you had when you started your business?
Initially, I needed to get a bank line of credit, and I had no experience with that at all.
Right.
I had only worked at my father's company, so I realized that I went to one bank, and they said you need a business plan. So then I hired somebody that was a business consultant to help me write a business plan. So I wrote a business plan, and that was my first idea, vision, and purpose. And I did use that myself, not only for eventually obtaining a bank line of credit, but I used that as a blueprint for vision to follow my business in the beginning, early years.
So as you started your company, besides the estimating aspect of it, what were some of the things that you said, unlike what we did at my dad's company, we're going to do this?
It's going back quite a few years. It's trying my memory to come up with that.
Let me ask you a different way then. What are some of the things that you said, we are definitely going to do it the way that we did it in my dad's company?
We are definitely going to do customer service the way that my father did in his company.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And customer service began with the estimating and the proposals and the interaction with the customers, educating the customers what the product was, the service was that we were going to sell them, and the attentiveness to the customer. And I learned to figure out who the customers are, or the prospective customers who wanted to be educated, who truly were interested in what we were providing for them more than just a commodity.
Okay.
I learned to sort out who are the potential customers that were looking at our work product or our service as a commodity, and I steered away from them. I steered towards.
And is that true for both the public and the private side of your business?
No, it's only true for the private side. For the public side, we look for a combination of owner histories with us.
Yep.
And how we interact with owners and the engineering firms that may be assigned to a specific job.
Right.
And sometimes there's a very good fit depending on the owner and the engineer we're working with, and other times we just decide that we don't want to take a certain job on because we think it may not go very well.
So you've now run your business for 20 years.
Yes.
What are the most important leadership traits for a construction executive or professional?
I've learned that the most important thing that a construction executive can do for the people that he's leading is to talk about core values on a regular basis, to reinforce core values through others, meaning push it out through the leadership team and other executives out into middle management, project managers, and then out into the field at the front line. Yep. With the foreman and the superintendents. I've also learned how important it is to create a vision for the company and stay focused on the vision. And I've seen the power in that. It's unbelievable, the stories that I can tell about the power in the vision, to stay focused on it. I look back at the early years that I was in business, and I tell people that I was like the sun, and I was warming up all these different things that I was working on, and I was just looking for work. And then over time, I realized that doesn't work. And then we became like a laser beam, and we laser beamed and gave all of our focus on this, that our company says is what we're going to go after and long term.
Okay. And we dive in, just so you guys know, if you're listening, we dive into a lot of what Bill is just touching on here in episode 92 of Construction Genius, which is the power of communicating your company's values and strategy every day. Bill, let me ask you, if you were to go back in time, if you could, and you were talking to your 20, 25, 30-year-old self, what are 3 pieces of advice you would give to that person in order to have a more successful career?
I would say listen to my father or listen to my boss.
Yep.
And ask my boss. I should rephrase that. I would say, ask your boss what he wants to do, and then listen to his answer, and then follow through on that. I find it hard to say the word obedient because back then I didn't want to be obedient. Right. But I needed to be obedient. I needed to understand with clarity what was expected of me, and then to follow through.
It's very powerful. It's very powerful. As we're wrapping up, what do you want your legacy to be?
I want my legacy to be a construction company. I'm going to leave a construction company that it doesn't self-run, but it's easier to run than what I experienced. I learned a lot of things the hard way, and I want to set this business up so that it carries forward and it's much easier to run with systems that we're working on to set up for the next generation that's going to run it. And that's professionally and personally. I want to spend more time with my wife, who I cherish, and my children. I have 2 daughters, and I want to spend more time with other family members that I haven't been in touch with. I want to be remembered in my personal life as that person that was compassionate and caring with family and friends.
Excellent. Excellent. Isn't it interesting how what we want out of life, it changes over time, huh?
It does, yeah. Yeah, we just get so busy at certain times of our life, and we just stay focused on the task at hand, and then things happen. And in my father's case, it was a business crisis, and that changed his focus in life. And recently, within the last year, we've had a health crisis in my family, and it's changed my focus in life. And I'm not happy that this happened to me and my family, yet I'm happy to spend so much more time with my wife now, and my daughters, and I so miss the times that I haven't seen family and friends during the last 6 months that we've been going through COVID. I truly miss them.
Yeah.
I miss the human aspect of them.
Yeah.
I would say 3 or 4 years ago, if I was in a COVID crisis, I would just say, okay, we're going to get through this. I got plenty to keep me busy.
Right.
But there's a different perspective when we go through crisis in our lives.
Ultimately, the legacy that we leave will have everything to do with the quality of the relationships that we have developed.
I agree with that. It's very true.
Yep. Well, Bill, I really appreciate you joining me again. Thank you for your openness and your willingness to share. I know that this will have great impact on the people who are listening to our discussion.
It's my pleasure, Eric. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes, share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit, and always remember that the show is brought to you by Kick-Ass Meetings. I've been working with construction leaders since 2004, teaching them how to run extremely effective problem-solving meetings that gets their people collaborating, taps into their creativity. And to get yourself a free copy of the Kick-Ass Meeting Report, go to www.ericanderton.com/kickassmeetings. Grab yourself that free report, read it, use it in your business. You'll find it extremely useful. And thanks again for listening.